And welcome, everybody. It's 2021, first hump day of the year. And I'm here with Steve, as always, on hump day. And we're just hanging out and chatting on this, what'll probably be a historic day, I think.
You think?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I know, right? It's pretty insane.
Yeah, I'm actually just so there's a thing on BBC right now where it's just basically pictures of the day, and it's insane. It's it's like a frat party crossed with, a tailgate party crossed with God only knows what. It's insane.
Yeah, honestly, if you turn on the news and you ignore the flags, you swear you're seeing some revolution in some poor South American so-called shithole country.
No, the worm has turned.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's something, and earlier today I was on a call with a client who's based in DC. So I didn't really know what was going on or anything like that just before my call at about 3 o'clock today. And then my wife happened to message me and say, "Hey, you heard what's going on down in the U.S.?" I'm like, "Well, there's always something going on in the U.S." Like, no, like yourself, Chris, sometimes you just got to plow through and do what you need to do in the day and just not always pay attention to the news. So I happened to jump on, just CBC, I think it was, or maybe BBC as well, only to see everything that was kind of happening. I was like, what the hell, And sure, it's been building up to a point where, unfortunately, this was the result, and yeah, but it's funny when you think about it. If you predicted something like this 20 years ago in the States, nobody would have believed you. Right. So we got to be careful as Canadians, too. Say that something like that would never happen in our country. Well, if it can happen in America, it can probably happen in Canada, too.
Well,
we're not
honestly,
unsusceptible to this.
It was pretty much predictable because, again, it's following the same pattern it did basically in many other countries, whether it's, Germany in the last century or Japan at some point, Oh, my chair went down. There we go. That's better. I hit the lever with my leg and I suddenly started sinking.
Nice.
Yeah, it follows. It's par for the course basically. This development. It's just a logical next step of a trend that's been going on for the past 4 years. I'm just surprised that it didn't get to this point earlier, to be honest.
Well, today was technically the last-ditch effort, for his campaign. Once, I don't know if you had a chance to read or not, but the elections that they had in Georgia today both went to the Democrats.
Yeah.
So now the Senate House is the Senate is completely split 50-50, which is probably a good thing, just to make things a little bit even and everything, but. American politics has been in the news a lot, and since I happened to see a few of my friends from work and stuff like that over this past week, kind of getting caught up from over the holidays and stuff, and it's just amazing to hear some of the opinions. I work with a couple of people that are pro-Trump, and that's fine, but I've been saying it for a while now. It really makes me wonder why, the States, even to this point, is still just a two-party system. I would think now would be the time to possibly have a third party that wavers somewhere in between these two, to try and bring back some sort of common sense. Yeah. Because I don't think there's common sense much on either side at this moment, at least the way that it's portrayed.
I just had a conversation with a friend the other day whether or not the word common sense applies in the way we usually use it, because his argument was that if it's not common, then it's not common sense, just by definition of the word.
Yep.
And I said, well, I still consider common sense something that should be common, but unfortunately is not, you know. But so that is kind of it is a question of semantics and definitions, you know. I guess both are valid. At least that's what we agreed on in our argument. But you have to stay with one interpretation within the context.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I mean, terms can change over time, right?
Yeah.
And so what is considered a term like common sense to my generation or your generation, might be completely, interpreted differently by generations that are either older or younger than us.
We all have to kind of keep in mind that society as a whole is a very, very dynamic, growing, living, breathing thing that's always evolving, always changing. And it has to, because stagnation would be death, you know. It always is in nature, in the universe in general, right? So, yeah. And we have to remember that since society evolves, our values have to evolve as well and adjust, you know, to changing knowledge, to changing levels of science, changing levels of medicine, population density, education, all these factors that play a role and that we have to consider reevaluating a lot of things, you know, and that includes our laws. And I think, basically, to make a long story short, the States is due for a version 2.0, Constitution 2.0. You know, they should take a long, hard look at their entire system of democracy, because the flaws have become pretty obvious over this last administration and election. You know, and there's a lot of problems that they have that other countries have already solved, you know. And there's no shame in learning from your peers or from others, you know. How did they do it? How did they avoid these problems, you know? And if you learn from all of them and put together something consistent that makes sense for you within the true spirit of what your national identity is, you know, in an evolved, modern, up-to-date kind of version.
I think you already sound too enlightened, Chris, and I mean that as a compliment.
Okay, you know, well, yeah, I have that problem a lot.
And what I mean by that is, and I agree with you as far as the idea of taking best practices, best ideas, making them your own to fit your own needs and stuff like that. I think that's, you know, what ultimately we should all do in every society, right? But I think one of the things that gets in the way, especially with America, and we have seen this a lot, is the whole national pride thing, you know, and just for the fact it's like, I'm not going to do what these people overseas do. You know, this is America, God damn it. You know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I think we've talked about this before, and in my opinion, it comes down to the education system and in the way which history and world geopolitical basically understanding is taught, because it's always taught from an egocentristic kind of position. So it's always taught from America only position and not from a global perspective.
It's just funny because, I mean, you talk about a version 2.0, and this is something that, you know, has happened in our own country. At least the phrasing that Prime Minister Trudeau used was, what was it? Kind of like a restart or something like that. You know, which a lot of people took offense to, right? You know, just the whole reimagining of things. And this is the thing too, is that once again, when you say a comment like that, everybody can interpret it differently. So even though, you know, he said something like that, it doesn't necessarily carry the same implications that one person will say versus another. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it doesn't mean that he thinks that Canada is terrible and we have to scrap everything and start from the ground up again.
No, I didn't interpret it that way either.
No, but you know what? But some people did, right? And
But
once
like
again,
a lot of people get triggered by a word and never get to the
yep,
point that they hear the entire message.
yep, you're very right.
So that is
And
a very common problem nowadays.
well,
But
in general, I think we all have our triggers, right?
of course,
And certain things do set people off, and it can be a multitude of things,
oh, totally.
right?
Like
So
I get triggered all the time. But what I've tried to do, and I don't always succeed, mind you, but I've tried to get to the point where when I get triggered, I at least wait till that person has finished his argument or his point, to make sure that basically, I tell myself, wait till he's done and collect all the ammo you got for your counterpunch that
yeah,
is
yeah,
coming, but at least I try to give them the opportunity to change my mind in the course of their argument, right? I'm not going to, just because I got triggered by the first word, I'm not going to stop listening to the rest of the argument because my first impression may be wrong.
no, I agree with that.
Right.
And it's just it's disturbing to see what the division is. We see it a bit here in Canada too, a little bit, but not. Let's just face it. When it comes to the population and everything like that down in the States, it's the magnitude of it, right? Just for the fact that it's so many millions of people are doing something a certain way or have certain beliefs and stuff, and it's insane to see how this all kind of plays out. And man, I just really hope that all the friends and families that we have down there are just keeping safe more than anything. And
I just hope this doesn't. I just hope this doesn't escalate any further than basically riots on Capitol Hill.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much you read, but I mean, they actually broke in.
I know.
Right?
I was watching the news just before the broadcast. I was watching CBC and NBC and Global.
So, like, here's a moral question for you. Did you see that one of the people that was involved? I'm not sure whether it was someone that was employed to protect the Capitol or whether it was a protester that basically was shot and killed. Right. So.
I heard it was a woman got shot and killed. That's all I heard.
That's all I know too. But let's just take a step back for a second. I don't care what side you're on of that. What does the actions that we are seeing right now justify that woman's death?
Nothing does. Nothing whatsoever. Of course. That's a given.
And like let's just say, for argument's sake, she's a Trump supporter. Right? Is any one person that is not, say, like, someone who's in your immediate family that you love or anything like that, is any public person or celebrity really worth dying over?
Never.
Personally, I would say no. And every single time I think that Trump's a celebrity and all that kind of stuff, and that people love him, certain people love him. And we'll do many, many different things to try and defend their beliefs and stuff like that. But
there's nothing wrong with admiring or even being a fan, which is short for fanatic, by the way. We tend to forget that, right?
Yes.
Yes. To be a fanatic follower of somebody, as long as your actions respect everybody else's freedoms. There is a line, and that line is clearly defined basically in the laws of the society you live in, wherever on the planet that may be. Pretty much every society on the planet has that line pretty clearly defined.
Yeah. It's just I can't even imagine how that family is feeling right now.
Me neither.
I mean, I don't know if she's been identified or anything like that, but regardless of what side she's on, my heart goes out to that family. Because in the end, it shouldn't be about political beliefs or anything like that. It should just be about caring for each other.
Yeah.
Period.
No, like when I turned on the news after you told me that there was something going on, because I was completely oblivious. I was basically in school all day watching tutorials, and I turned on the news. The first image I saw is a bunch of these Proud Boys standing there with their assault rifles halfway up the hill in front of the White House, and I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck is going on here? Like literally, you know. It's a Banana
Yeah,
Republic image that I was seeing there.
yeah. I don't know. There's just I don't know much more of what we can really say. It's I just hope that eventually it gets under control. And at this point, like whether you're for Trump or not, at this point, you got to wonder if, with him doing what he's doing and everything like that, how is he really helping the country at this point? Because it's really been all about him. Well, what is he really doing for the people of America at this point? Other than, egging on and causing violence and disruption. I want to know. I'd like somebody to explain that to me. What is he really doing that justifies this behavior? Because I don't think there is anything that justifies it.
It doesn't justify, but I can explain you exactly what he's doing. He's stroking their ego. That's all.
Well, from a guy that needs his ego stroked constantly, that's not entirely surprising.
No, exactly. He knows the value of a good stroking. He's used to paying for it. You know what I mean? So.
Well, he's used to having a show, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what it boils down to, right? I mean, when you think about it, this was definitely 4 seasons of the Trump show.
Oh,
when you
sure.
look at it, just a hell of a lot more episodes than what you would get on regular broadcast television.
Like I said, I call that show Murica.
Yeah, exactly.
And what we're seeing right now is the season finale. And I hear the next season they're going to have an all-new cast. A new writer, so hopefully that season will be better.
I don't envy the new administration, I can tell you that much.
No.
I wouldn't envy anybody coming into that situation, no matter what they do. Oh my God, just the way that country is right now, it wouldn't matter.
They got to restore democracy.
Nobody that isn't Trump could do anything to make it any better as far as in the eyes of everybody. And I know that you can never please everyone, but still, like.
Well, plus now he really got the entire PC community against him because his tariffs now started hitting CPUs and GPUs, and prices are skyrocketing for computer components. It amidst the shortage of parts anyways, and that's going to start impacting the entire tech industry. It's just like the DIY computer industry is just the first one to feel it. But
I really have to wonder once the new administration does take over, and I still think that is what's going to happen regardless at this point. Whether a lot of the tariffs and sanctions and stuff like that he put in place will be removed.
Hopefully they'll roll back some of on the trade war, and get back to the negotiating table and kind of come up with some sensible, mutually beneficial agreements, that are more about mutual benefit than about ego.
I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to want to touch NAFTA. That's for sure. After it's been renegotiated and everything like that, because I think America actually did quite well out of it. I think Canada got screwed a bit though. Especially when it came to
we're right
the dairy
now
farmers
primarily
and stuff like
talking about the Chinese tariffs, right?
Right. Yes.
Those are the ones that are most impactful to the world global economy, because, and here's the thing, here's the trick that the administration did. They rolled out these tariffs, but put an exemption on it for certain electronic components that American companies needed to manufacture their products here. So that includes stuff like microprocessors, motherboards, graphics cards, hard drives, memory chips, those kind of stuff, standard stuff that needs to be for every single cell phone, tablet, what have you not, right? Now,
Yep.
this exemption expired a week ago, which means all of these tariffs now hit these previously exempt products full blast, right? And the companies aren't moving a lot of product because there's a supply shortage due to the pandemic.
Yeah. Definitely.
So they got to jack up their profit margin to make ends meet, basically, right?
I think that's really been the mantra of many companies to be able to survive through whether they're, getting assistance from their government or not.
What I'm saying is we're looking at like a 25% increase in prices for electronic components. Like
I'm not surprised by that.
GPUs. It'll be a tough one.
Yeah, it will be, especially when you have to go and get that new laptop, get that new device, period. It's certainly going to hurt.
Well, and
for
just
the
imagine
next little while.
the trickle-down effect it has for all the North American companies whose production depends on having those products, right? Like if you're an American company building laptops, like say Dell or something like that.
Yeah.
If you now have to pay the full tariffs on your memory chips, on your SSDs, on your CPUs, on your GPUs, on your motherboards, then how the hell are you going to make any money if you're only selling 10% of what you normally move?
Hard to say.
So
really, really hard to say.
Yeah, so those tariffs definitely have to come down, or else it's just going to have such a huge impact on the global tech community.
Yeah, and it's. I have to wonder if where we are here in Ontario, if we're headed towards, we're going to have those expenses and stuff, and the cost of living throughout our country keeps going up no matter what. But one of the other things that I read just before coming on here was that Quebec is going to basically put a curfew in. So basically now nobody is supposed to be out and about from 8 p.m. I think it is to 6 a.m. is what the new curfew is going to be, and it's going to be for a month.
Okay.
All in another effort to basically try and bring COVID numbers down, and I don't know if they're under full lockdown or not. I would imagine that they must be pretty close. So, but yeah, I mean, this second wave has certainly been much bigger, I think, in a lot of respects in comparison to what we had when everything kind of shut down.
Well, again, that's again, it follows the patterns that all pandemics before it have, and it's right back to the Spanish flu. And it was well known. All the scientists, that had predicted that the second wave usually is 2 to 3 times bigger than the first one. It's just a logic of math, basically, of the spread and the square progression of spread.
Yeah, I mean, we look kind of now at what the first wave was, and it's in comparison to where we are now with numbers, it's kind of a joke. But I think. Another thing that propelled things so quickly was just the fear of it, right? Because nobody knew what it was and understood anything about it, and so I get the initial reaction. I really do, as much as we all suffered for it in a lot of different ways, But
but the problem is now fatigue and complacency has set in, and that's even worse.
Oh, I'm not saying that it hasn't. It has, and. As much as like we talked the other week about vaccines coming out and stuff like that, and there is a glimmer of hope, and right now I know Canada is having difficulties as far as to get the rollout of the vaccine into more patients and stuff like that. That's a bit of an issue at the moment, but hey, hopefully it's something that they can fix soon. But regardless, when you look at it, especially in our industry, we're still going to be last on the list as far as those people that would be in line for it, right?
Yeah. Well, we've been the one of the few industries that have been completely shut down from day one, basically, right? And
yeah, absolutely.
if you look at it, sure, we get we're eligible for CERB or similar kind of benefits,
Yep.
which are what, like $400 a week or something like that. Which
That's peanuts.
whatever the number is, roundabout there, $400 to $500 a week, which ends up being like $1,600 a month.
Yeah, it's
Now
peanuts.
in
when you
Toronto,
look
I
at it.
just looked it up today. In Toronto, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is $2,130.
You know, and it's funny because people were saying, oh, rent and, and housing prices and stuff like that are going to plummet. And I haven't been keeping an eye on the real estate market. I'll admit that. But, you just moved back to where you were. And, it certainly wasn't a decrease in rent, I'm sure.
No, but I'm
even
still
though you
lucky.
had been there for quite some time and everything.
I was going to say, I'm still lucky. I'm still almost grandfathered in with this place. So I'm really lucky. I pay, let's say, less than the average. But nevertheless, at the end of the month, and this is something I was going to address anyways because of the GoFundMe my buddy Chris started for me. Because I feel I need to talk about it a little bit, and this is as good a time to bring it up as any. So the situation is basically this: with the money I get from the CEWS or whatever, at the end of the month after paying my rent, I have exactly $150 left. So that barely doesn't always cover hydro. In the winter, it barely covers hydro because I have electric baseboard heating. Right? Which means if I pay my rent and hydro, there's no money left for food, for dog food, for phone, internet, transit, what have you not, right? So it's completely unsustainable in itself. Now, this in itself wasn't originally a problem if I didn't have this unfortunate mishap that ate up all of my emergency savings. And by mishap, I mean my attempt to kind of help somebody out, who is in trouble and at the same time save some money for myself, which, let's just say, it backfired spectacularly, costing me every bit of my emergency savings by having to move to Hamilton and moving back and effectively having to pay double rent on two places for 2 months, plus 2 sets of moving costs, plus when I first moved there, I gave away pretty much all my kitchen equipment and a whole bunch of other stuff that I thought I wasn't going to need. So anyway, I had to come back, and I found myself, pretty much broke and missing a whole bunch of things, and with bills piling up rapidly. So this is how this came about.
No, and I got to give a good nice shout out to Chris. I've never met him before, or anything like that, but the fact that he put that together to try and help somebody out that was obviously in need, I think is very commendable. And just shows that in this community, we can have a lot of caring people. And quite frankly, I didn't know about it until somebody else contacted me today to say, hey, what's going on with Chris? I'm like, what do you mean what's going on with Chris? I mean, I talked to him last week.
Yeah,
actually, we've both been busy and
Chris
stuff.
sent me the link to it this morning. He didn't really say much about it before he did it either. He just kind of sent me this link this morning. So I'm really grateful to him. And Chris is a really good guy. I've been working a lot with him over the last year. We did a lot of collaborations together. And I've been mentoring him a little bit when it comes to like video editing and stuff like that. I built him a video editing computer. That rocks.
It's good to have somebody like that in your corner, though.
Well, yeah, and clearly. I mean, he's, like I said, he's one of the good guys. That's why I don't mind teaching him and mentoring him. Because he's one of the good ones. And
yeah, exactly.
And I support that. You know what I mean? So and it's nice to kind of. That this kind of him doing this kind of stuff kind of proves my impression of him. Let's call it that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, exactly. And it's not like you prompted it or anything like that.
No.
He just went ahead and did it because he felt that you were in need. And let's face it. In the times that we're in right now, you can't be too proud.
Yeah, that's true.
You really would have.
I've given up pride. I've given up pride quite a while ago. It's like literally, there's no
When it comes to
point.
finances and stuff, for what we're going through right now, even though I'm working and my wife is working too, I'm at a reduced rate as well, and we're just barely scraping by. You
Yeah.
know, at the end of it, I still got to pay for this house that I'm in and stuff,
Yeah.
and the
Well,
idea of downsizing and stuff like that. It's like, well, we barely have much space to begin with,
yeah,
so
that's what I mean. Like,
downsize to what?
yeah, like
So
I got a one bedroom place and I'm pretty tightly packed. I mean, you know as well as anybody else how tightly packed my place is, but I couldn't afford anything larger. I can't even,
no, of course
even
not.
this is unsustainable for me from my current financial situation if I don't come up with an additional income.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
unfortunately, like jobs right now are very, very thin and hard to come by, especially with our area of qualification.
Yeah, no, that's very true, and it's something I'll talk about with you offline. There was a bit of news that I'll share with you about someone that I know that basically just had a new opportunity with a company that's specializing in virtual meetings that is now going to be doing that, and it sounds like it's this company, which I'm not even sure the name of it, is expanding. So might be something to maybe connect with this person about. It's
Okay, yeah,
somebody you know as well.
we'll
But
talk about it
once
after
again,
the stream.
yeah, I would name names and everything like that, but at the same time, I don't believe that this person really wants it made as
No,
public knowledge at
yeah,
this point,
well,
and it's their news, not mine. So
yeah, like I
you
said,
know,
we'll talk about it after the stream. That's
yeah, exactly. But when it comes to job opportunities and stuff like that, it's incredibly difficult. Another shared friend of ours, I know, just picked up another job as well, doing installations, which is still better than doing warehouse work or anything like that.
yeah.
At least it's a bit better pay, and obviously can lead to more stable things. So I've actually wondered about that. I mean, as far as I could tell, other than the restrictions of having a certain amount of people in buildings and such, I would think that the AV installation business, even though it may have slowed down and everything like that, would still remain somewhat stable. I've been meaning actually to get a hold of an old friend of mine that happens to run Spark AV, just to talk to him about that because it's just more out of interest than anything.
Well,
It's not
what
like I have any
you know
plans to go into
what?
installation, but
If I had an installation company, here's what I would do. I would put together, let's say, four-man teams and put them together into a hotel room suite. Those four guys live together in a bubble. It's a fixed team. They always stay together. That way they can stand next to each other on a ladder and hand each other items back and forth without additional infection risk. So simple like hand washing, sanitizing measures, and masks would be sufficient, for safety on site because these guys are all part of the same family unit essentially.
great idea and concept. However, I'm going to differ with that and just say that the cost of that alone, say that you're married and you have kids or anything like that. So to basically say, yeah, for this job, I'm basically going to be away from home all this time. I don't know of many companies that would want to pay a premium for that.
Oh, they probably
Just
they
to do
probably would. I
that.
mean, like they do it all the time for people like, let's say, oil rig workers and stuff like that.
Yes. Yes.
Sailors and truckers and bus drivers and airline pilots, cruise ship crews. So there is plenty of examples where it makes sense.
Uh, True. But in the middle of a pandemic, when companies are trying to keep their heads above water to begin with, I think you'd be very hard pressed to be able to get that kind of premium, for the position that the majority of companies are in right now, which is basically survival mode. And while I
But it
think
could
it's
make the difference.
conceptually it's a great idea, I
But
just
it,
think that cost wise it might be a bit of a problem.
Well, unless you can come up with a really, really good deal, or you rent an apartment basically that you put these people in, or now empty office spaces and you can convert it into a compartment. that you have your crews living on a regular basis. You can swap them out every other week or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I
Have
mean,
the
it would
crews
have to,
basically like live together in 2 week blocks as a unit.
yeah, because every single time you, yeah, the whole quarantine thing makes it difficult. That's for sure. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, that's why you got
great for
to.
work as far as that's concerned. But then when you're done that, to go home, you should be fine, right? You shouldn't have to quarantine
Yeah.
after that, you know. But certainly after you come back and you have to go back to work, depending on who within your your circle or anything like that has been exposed to or anything like that, you have to might have to be pretty damn careful, as far as that's concerned. I don't know. All I know is that that is a bigger idea than what I've got the brain power for.
Yeah, no,
Let's just put it that way.
well, no, I just think like, having like fixed work teams that don't mix and interact with anybody else except themselves, makes it a lot easier for contact tracing. Like if they live together for 2 weeks, at the end of their shift, let's say, you can test everybody. And if anybody is positive, then they all go with a warning and have to quarantine for 2 weeks before they can come back to work for another shift, for example. If none of them test positive and they've been there for 2 weeks on the shift, then clearly they're not infected. So they're safe. Their families are safe.
True.
And then they just have to be retested before they start their next shift to make sure they're clean when they come into the 2 week group shift.
I think I'm really just speaking more for myself here, and that I don't think personally, for me, I could get behind the idea of isolating with, say, like 3 or 4 other people, and that's it, or whatever. When it's not my family, especially if you happen to be on a crew of people that you don't get along with, or there's conflicts or anything like that.
But it's like being on a tour bus. Come on, that's nothing new to us.
Yeah, it is. But it's just I don't know. For me, no thanks. No, I'd especially when we're already dealing with a certain amount of social isolation to begin with, right? So that's just my personal opinion. It just wouldn't be for me.
Yeah, no, I was saying it's just an idea that crossed my mind, how you can kind of create a safe and maintainable risk environment for people that have to work in groups together, where they have to hand each other stuff, where they have to hold stuff together, interchangeably touching cables and tools and what have you not, to kind of minimize the risk in there. The only way to do that is keep that group as a bubble isolated. Similar approach that they try to do in professional sports to some extent.
Yes.
Just do it right,
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, certainly the sporting world has had a lot of setbacks too, as far as trying to maintain some normalcy on that. And I know you're not much of a sports guy or anything like that, but by far the best example that I've seen of it has been the hub cities and stuff like that the NHL did, as far as just containing everything for the playoffs, which was oh, okay. So in my opinion, I thought that worked pretty well. But now that they're talking about, like, now they're coming out with this whole new divisional structure due to our borders and stuff like that. So now, if you're not aware, there's now a Canadian league, which is going to be interesting, even though it's a shortened season and everything like that. So we'll know in about a week's time when everything kind of comes back and the regular season begins. So it's certainly not going to be as recognizable of a pastime as what we've seen in the past, but nothing really is. It's really a shadow of itself, for a lot of things that we're doing at the moment.
I was going to say, things are changing. They constantly are,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we're fooling ourselves if we think that, once everybody is vaccinated, that everything's going to go back exactly to how it was, the end of February 2019. Or, sorry, 2020, I should say. I think that's a pipe dream. There's no way that after almost a year of this that we're not changed.
Of course, everything has changed. Nothing will go back to the way it was. It can't.
Yeah.
Unless we completely fail to learn anything If things went back to exactly the way they were, then we wouldn't have learned anything out of this, and then we deserve to kind of nuke ourselves out of existence because then we're just dumb as dipshit as a species. So,
Oh man,
but
that's
the
why
thing
when I
is,
keep seeing memes about Mad Max and stuff like that on Facebook, I'm just like, yeah, I get that 2021 is.
yeah, that's the
Mad
year it
Max started,
happened,
but come
basically. But then again, we way past the age of science fiction. Like I was just saying, actually, to Chris Shaw the other day, I was telling him that when I was a kid in like elementary school and Boy Scout age in general, my favorite TV show was a European sci-fi show called Space 1999. And they had some really, really cool spacecrafts. And it was basically about a moon base that had a big explosion on the surface with a chain reaction. And the moon got blown out of Earth orbit and hurled off into space. Right? And they're basically cut off there on their own on this moon base, and they're encountering all this crazy stuff and aliens and different stuff. And yeah, one of their signature texts, they had a communication device that you could, like a walkie-talkie, that you could not only talk, but it had a little TV screen in the top that you could see the person you're talking to, right? The thing was about the size of a beer bottle. Imagine a square beer bottle and you're holding it basically neck downwards.
Yep.
And what would be the bottom of the bottle is a little TV screen, right? And
yeah, no, I get it. I mean, really what you're talking about is this, with an antenna, so to speak.
And
this
a
is
lot
the size of a
clunkier.
stubby.
Yeah.
Right? If you think about the stubby bottles, this isn't much bigger, right?
Yeah, but think about a cell phone squared, basically.
Yeah.
Like, let's say 2 by 2 inches square, a cube. That's about 5-6 inches long.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they had, and it was like super sci-fi advanced when I was a kid. And we've surpassed that. We've flattened that thing down, and a much better image quality than they had. They had a 4 by 3 CRT monitor built in that thing, right? So clearly,
I don't know. We're still not floating around in jetpacks.
Well, that's not quite true. Just not all of us. There is, successful jetpacks systems out there. There's a company called Gravity that has built really, really successful jetpacks.
I don't doubt that. I know the technology exists. I'm just saying, as far as a regular mode of transportation.
Yeah,
we saw it, kind of advertised as kids.
It's true. It's commercially available, but it's not mainstream. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
But and flying cars are just on the doorstep, but they're not widely available yet. But they're hitting the market now, one by one.
Well, it took long enough, even just for electric cars and hybrid cars, for that matter, to really get any sort of traction at all. And so it's hard to say what the next step will be, but
not really.
Certainly, there's been some success stories from that. I mean, you look like at a company like Tesla, and you're seeing a lot more of those vehicles on the road these days.
You want to know what the next
stylish to own one.
You want to know what the next step's going to be? In my humble opinion, I'll predict it right now. The next 2 steps in automotive mobility development. The next step, obviously, is quite opposite. Is self-driving autonomous cars.
Right.
And the inevitable consequence of that is no more personal car ownership, but transportation as a subscription service. You subscribe to Amazon Drive or Apple Drive. You call for a car on your phone, basically like you call for an Uber. An autonomous vehicle pulls up in front of you and drives you wherever you want to go.
The pieces for that foundation are already well in place.
That's what I mean. Those are the obvious next two inevitable steps how this is going to go. It's like you said yourself, it's in motion. All the pieces are in place. It started down that progress, and it's just you'd have to be blind not to be able to predict that.
I'm trying to remember what movie it was. It was a sci-fi movie as well, where all the transport trucks were automated like that too, and you just had to basically get out of the way.
Will
if you were on
Smith
the highway.
AI.
What's that?
I think it was iRobot with Will Smith or AI.
It might have.
iRobot, I think
one
it
of the
was.
two. I can't remember off the top of my head, but you know, even the concept of that was kind of scary at the time. Just thinking about, yeah, I've done some weird shit in
Well, you know,
some of those trucks before, let alone with them moving.
if you do it right, it's actually really safe. You just make a separated lane for the trucks, you know, with a collision median in between it, and have autonomous trucks driving on their own little 2-lane track next to the highway, where the manually driven people will drive around.
It just you know, certain environments are better for that than others, you know, and so you look like at an environment like California, where they don't get a lot of rain, they don't get snow for the most part, unless you're actually up in the mountains, you know. So it's a great environment for the fact that it's pretty stable the majority of the time, you know. You don't have to be worrying about you know, whether it's going to be slippery on the roads and crap like that.
Oh no, you just got to
not like
worry
the same
about
challenges we have here.
You just got to worry about earthquakes and forest fires and.
It's nothing.
You
know,
an earthquake is not going to harm your road. Bah.
That's still good. It's still good. It's just a little hole in the ground. Keep
You got a
going.
4x4. You'll be all right. Just put it in low 4 gears.
Don't worry. The automatic truck will figure it out. You know? So, yeah, there you go. But, yeah, so, I mean, yeah, you look at it like Tesla has the whole self-driving thing, is at least even just doing it on your device, right? You know, and you're right. It's the first step to what will eventually become automated cars. I don't know if you've watched Silicon Valley at all, but there's an awesome scene in like one of the first seasons where basically a tech company has exactly that, like a self-driving car. And they're like, don't worry, we'll give you a lift back home and you can just get off here. And in the middle of it, it receives another set of coordinates and it ends up going on to into a shipping crate or whatever on on a boat, and basically he ends up on like an oil rig or whatever, the guy who's inside or whatever, with like no way to get home.
That's funny.
So it was funny. I mean,
I thought the car may have gotten a software update and gone into factory recall mode and decided to drive back to the factory for an update.
Yeah. So, you know, it's yeah, it was pretty funny. But yeah, it's like, wow, just the fact that we're on the you know, the edge of that right now. You know, I think it's possible within the next 20 years that that could become a mainstream reality.
Totally. I mean,
You know,
I'll bet you Apple and Amazon and Google, all three of them, will offer rides. Probably companies like Uber as well will transition.
yeah,
And
I'm sure it's already under research.
well,
and
see here, the
development there.
transitional stage between those two steps will be you still own your car that's capable of fully autonomous driving, and you define a schedule of time when you're not using it, and you allow that car basically to be thrown into the general pool that subscribers of iDrive or Google Car or whatever they want to call it, you know, then can basically book a car. Your car will drive there, pick them up, drive them where they want to go, and come back and park itself in your parking lot and make you money.
Yeah.
Right? That'll be the intermediate
Chris,
state.
What's the second prediction? Because you haven't gotten to that yet.
Yeah, the second one was that there won't be any, you won't even own a car. It'll be just as a subscription service. You subscribe to Apple Drive, and they provide you a car when you need it. Right? They own basically fleets of cars. Their own products like Apple iCar 2030 or whatever. They own a fleet of those. And as a subscriber, you just call a car, and from the nearest around the corner, whichever is nearest available, whatever their algorithm picks up, an Apple car will come and drive you to wherever you want to go.
That already sounds like it would be an intriguing episode of Black Mirror if you watch that show at all.
I have.
So,
I very much like that show.
yeah, it's an awesome show. It's funny because I was thinking of like another invention. I don't know if you ever saw the episode where a person has like a chip kind of on the back of their neck, and it basically can access people's their thoughts. It keeps like a memory roll, and stuff like that.
I
Like
remember that
drive,
episode.
right? And I'm thinking to myself, it'd be kind of cool is to have something like that would do simultaneous translation or whatever for anywhere that you walk in the world. So you go to India, and whatever the native language and dialect that is being spoken, you would hear it back as whatever language you interpret it as.
I hate to break it to you, but there's an app for that.
Yeah, I know, but I mean intuitively though. Like so that you wouldn't have to look anything up.
No, you can turn. You can. There's phone apps that'll automatically voice detect and translate and speak to you in the translated language.
Yes, but so that you gain respect as well, and make sure that people understand the way that you say it or anything like that, in a way either through teaching or some other way, so that you would pronounce the words properly. So that you are not kind of viewed upon as, a complete idiot or a tourist.
Right. So you want to basically upload the ability to speak the language natively into your brain, is what you're saying, or outsource that part of the brain function to an external chip. One of the two, right?
Anybody that's an interpreter right now that would possibly be listening would probably be screaming fucking bloody murder right now at me. Because it's a good paying job, right? But I don't know. So many things get lost in translation.
I mean, at this point, at this point, you're entering the whole cyberpunk era and cyborg era where you're talking about human augmentation.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
Because
admittedly.
And I mean, we're talking at this. I don't know how many dozens of times it's been used in sci-fi. That somebody has the ability to upload a skill into his mind. There was in the 70s, there was a movie, I don't know, was it called The Omega Man or something like that?
Well, yeah, it became I Am Legend. We were just talking about this today, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
At work, yeah. I Am Legend, which is Omega Man, yeah.
Yeah, where basically this race driver after an accident, this guy after an accident had the ability to upload stuff in his brain, but only could remember for 48 hours or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And what sounds really similar to that same story? RoboCop.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. That subject matter in its endless variations has been picked up over and over again. In The Matrix as well, when Keanu Reeves uploads Kung Fu, So it's a reoccurring theme in sci-fi is what I was trying to draw out.
Absolutely it is.
Which is usually...
It's been done so many different ways.
And that's usually an indication of there being a very primal common desire for that kind of a thing in our human common consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Right?
Yeah. That's why I like a series like Black Mirror, because it shows like the downside of the technology, right?
Exactly.
And let's face it, for every plus that we have, there are a multitude of problems that come up with the new technological advancements that we do, develop, right? So... Yeah. It's whether it's well, now I can do this and I've got basically a mini computer in my hands. That's great. Okay, but on the downside, how many years will this take to break down in a dump somewhere?
And also, which abilities have you lost because you've outsourced them to a device?
Yes, that's a great point.
And on two levels, that is you or me as an individual. And we as a society as whole, because you and I, may have lost or our ability to remember phone numbers is probably greatly diminished since our childhood.
The only phone number I remember is my parents' phone number.
I remember my childhood phone number I remember my childhood phone number from elementary school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's about it. And my best friend from elementary school, his number I can still remember as well. But aside from that, we've completely lost that ability to remember all these phone numbers because we've outsourced it to a machine. Right? That's our generation. Now the next generation's growing up younger than us, who never saw a world without an internet connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Who never had to learn how to read a map or use a compass because they just got Google Maps on their phone.
Yeah, very true.
You know, and there is a slew of other abilities that we've basically outsourced to a device that people don't, that we as a society are collectively losing the ability to do.
I would say this is a common trend, certainly in first world nations, right? You know, because obviously, there are places within Canada and the U.S. and stuff like that where you could go where there is no cell service or anything like that. Normally, we call that camping, but there are places out there where, had you been left to your own devices and you've never learned these skills like you just listed, how would you survive?
Yeah, well, you'd obviously
probably wouldn't.
You'd learn to adapt and you'd develop other skills, at least, on an evolutionary scale. An individual might suffer or die horribly if they don't know, how to maintain a straight line in the woods, or where to find water or how to keep warm at night or how to build a shelter or whatever, what most of us would consider basic survival camping skills, right?
Yeah.
But exactly. Again, there's certain skills that you and I and our generation take for granted because for us they're normal to have, that following generations will grow up without having to learn because it's always been outsourced.
Mm-hmm.
It's
kind of funny, like you see all these reality TV shows, like, Survivor and, whatever the case where they're out in the wild and they're trying to survive. And, it's interesting. On any of those programs, have you ever seen somebody that was either is or once was homeless on that show or a show like it?
Well, I don't really watch reality
I'm probably going to
TV,
guess probably not, because the chances of them winning that I would think would be exponentially in their favor because of their survival skills alone.
Yeah, either that or have somebody who's had actual survival training, like special ops, military, pilots, astronauts, people that actually spent, I don't know, like 2 weeks crawling through a desert, with nothing but a flashlight and a compass or whatever, or digging their way out of a jungle after being thrown out of a plane in a parachute in the middle of the Congo or whatever,
No, well, that sounds just like my regular Friday night. Come on.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know people that consider that a vacation, right? But
some people do. Some people thrive off that.
Yeah. So who are we to judge? But
no, not at all, right? I'm just saying there's usually a reason why.
But somebody like that would obviously
are not selected for those programs because half of the drama is watching people fail.
Well, that's it. Because if you picked somebody like that, they just walk all over the show. They'd be sitting there and smiling and
laughing.
Having roast pig, having a roast pig luau somewhere.
Yeah, no kidding.
And having built themselves a shelter with a 2-door garage with a remote garage door opener, out of sticks,
You know what? I'd fucking tune in for that shit.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Hey, give me enough time and enough sticks and rope, I'll build you something like that.
I'm gonna MacGyver something together.
I already figured out how I'm doing the garage door opener while I was saying it. Let's say it involves pulleys, ropes, and big bags of sand.
Oh man. Well, I don't think I'd want to compete against you in that scenario.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the story. I don't think I've told a lot of people. When I was in the Boy Scouts, right? Like I was living in Germany at the time, and there weren't any Canadian Boy Scout troops in the area where I lived. So I joined an American Boy Scout troop.
Okay.
But the agreement was I'd wear a Canadian uniform, they'd have to double up all the ceremonies. They have to have Canadian flags as well, and stuff like that. We'd wear the American rank patches and merit badge system.
Okay.
But again, we'd have Canadian uniforms, have our own flag and our own flag patches on our uniform.
And this is while you were living in Germany?
While I was living in Germany. Yeah, because there was an American military base near us.
So, yeah, no, I understand that part. So where does the part come in that you associated with Canada with that? That's the part I'm not understanding.
Well, because I was Canadian. My dad was Canadian, right? Me and my brother were both Canadian citizens, right? There are just no Canadian troops stationed nearby, so there was no Canadian Boy Scout troops within a 4-hour drive, basically, right?
So based on the nationality of the composition of your family.
Well, no, my
so.
dad was a member of the Canadian Air Force when I was born. So
right.
I'm automatically a Canadian citizenship because he was living in Germany because he was stationed there.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Sorry,
me and my brother were
together.
both born Canadian. We never had German citizenship.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
okay.
No, because Germans didn't do dual citizenship. I would have had to given up my Canadian one to get a German one.
Right. Okay.
So,
well, yeah, I mean that's happened more in the U.S. too.
Yeah.
As far as getting rid of the dual citizenship.
Yeah.
But I mean, for some of it, it's for a good reason too.
Yeah.
Though.
Anyways, to get back to my
country or any country for decades, what's the point of hanging on to that citizenship?
Yeah. Anyways, we digress. To get back to the story I was saying about the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
We used to go on survival camp trips, which would basically break us down into squad sizes, which was 4 to 5 people per squad. And each of us was allowed to bring a sleeping bag, a flashlight, a compass, and a little emergency survival pack that was about the size of a deck of cards, or an Altoid tin full of stuff. Where you usually have stuff like some piano wire, some fish hooks, some Band-Aids, some salt, some sugar, some iodine pills and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some matches, some Flintstones or whatever, so you can make fire, that kind of stuff. And then they dropped each squad in a different spot in the forest. Each squad got a piece of paper with compass coordinates. And at those compass coordinates, which was probably about a 5-hour hike away, we'd find drinking water supplies, and we'd camp there overnight, and we'd also find the coordinates for our pickup location, where they'd pick us up the next day, basically on Sunday night. Like, they drop us off on Friday afternoon, and they'd pick us up on Sunday afternoon whenever we arrive at the target site. So there were like two jumps in between with coordinates that we had to find at the target location. And it was a lot of fun, basically, because we were like, 12 years old at the time. The oldest was in our case a patrol leader. He was 15. And to make a long story short, when our senior patrol leader came to pick us up at the destination site, we were sitting there, had built a big campfire, and we were roasting a rabbit on a spike over the campfire, drinking tea that we brewed from pine needles.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was actually interesting, because we had to build shelters at night because it rained the first night. But we were lucky we got to where we needed to be real quick and found the water and the coordinates to the next place. So we had a lot of time to build some good shelters for the night, for the rain. And then because everything was so wet, we started early the next morning, heading over to the final destination. And got there real early in time, set up some snares, caught a rabbit or two. Set up a campfire, built a little lean-to and a little kind of rack to skin the rabbits and stuff. It was cool.
That's the quickest way for a vegan or vegetarian to basically get off that diet, so to speak, as if you were trapped in the wild and you had to survive and there was nothing else around.
Yeah,
right?
I mean the supply of berries and roots is probably limited.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
You get to a point where you just need something to give you energy, you know, and then it's a survival situation.
yeah, but then again,
You do what you have to.
there might be landscape in which it's a lot easier to find fruit and vegetables than it is
Totally.
to find huntable game that you actually have a chance of catching.
Oh, totally. At that point, it's really just being able to find whatever you would need to
Yeah.
survive, whether that's meat or not.
Yeah,
You know?
like if the only meat that's in your area are like I don't know, mountain lions and bears, you might have a hard time hunting something edible.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if
don't
all
have
you
any,
got is rocks
tools with you.
especially if you only got rocks and sticks.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Wow, man, we've gone from Boy Scouts to, the storming of Capitol Hill, all the way back to the pandemic of God knows how many times over, and look where we are. And just like that, the hour has passed.
We're still alive and kicking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this is the new year, right? And I'm hoping to kind of make this channel grow a little more this year. That looking back, I consider 2020 was kind of more or less a trial run.
In a lot of respects, it was.
Yeah, right. And like I've got a couple of ideas for shows that I definitely would like to do, but we're definitely going to need some input and some assistance from the community.
Absolutely.
Like, one thing I would like to do is I would like to do some gear reviews, right? And gear tutorials basically for other technicians, Take a piece of gear and basically make a review of it and explain to people how to use it. Whether it's something like a video switcher or a scan converter or a lighting console or a digital audio console or a DSP or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
Well, the problem is here that is partially because of the lockdown. I can't just go into the shop, and start shooting with gear that's on the shelf there and shoot a video there.
That was exactly what I was about to say too. Access to that gear is a lot tougher to come by right now.
Exactly. So
That's for sure.
my line of thinking is get community interaction, because there is people that might have a piece of gear at home or have access to that piece of gear at any given time. Maybe they have it in their garage, or they have their own storage where they own that piece of gear and they have it in their living room or basement or whatever. And have people basically make their own little review about that piece of gear.
Yeah.
Like my favorite lighting console, here's why, and then I'd like to introduce you, to my grandma. This is why, and this is how I like to work on the grandma. This is how I like to structure my shows and whatever, whatever your thing is. Or somebody goes like, hey, like, do you guys remember how to use a Sony DSC 1024G? No? Well, it's your Image Pro's grandfather,
1024 has been around forever.
I know.
Yeah. It's tips and tricks certainly would be a good thing. I think there's more than enough YouTube tutorials out there as far as the basics and stuff like that. But
yeah,
certainly,
but it'd be like interesting, like to get it from a text perspective for text and not
rather than an engineer's.
Yeah, or not in a review that is meant for the general audience, where you have to assume the dumbest level, but where you're saying, hey, I'm talking to my peers, I'm talking to other technicians.
Yeah, customization.
Yeah,
customization.
Right. It's like I don't have to explain what an SDI input is. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
For example,
Absolutely.
You know the difference between a balanced and an unbalanced audio line, right? Okay, good. Those kind of things, where you can just kind of, you don't have to go that far back. You can just basically say, here, Listen, this is the new Panasonic HS 2750 GBX. It's got this new feature. It can, I don't know, simultaneously upscale your input to 4K, 120 frames, and downscale it to standard definition in PAL and output it to two different assignable outputs. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I got what you're saying. I do.
See, that's exactly the point. You got what I was saying.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly the point. You know, you can say stuff like on that level, and because it's your target audience, right? They understand.
Well, that's the one thing that I always hate about some of the YouTube tutorials too, is that, you know, for whatever we're, you know, using the piece of equipment for our purposes, you're just looking through it. It's like a needle through a haystack, right? It's like, and you're just like looking through all this crap, and you're just like, oh, God damn it. You know, when is it going to be applicable to the shit I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And,
like I had that, interesting you say that, because I had that very experience when I was doing research for graphic cards.
Yeah.
To put into computers, you know, and comparing workstation class graphics cards to high-end gaming class graphics cards, where for bang for the buck in performance, quite often the gaming cards perform better, just in pure brute force, right? You get more RAM, you get more horsepower in those gaming cards, and quite often they're based on the same chips, but they almost only differ in the drivers and in the firmware, right?
Yep.
But
yep, I got you.
The main point being is you find very little comparison between those two classes of cards, even though they're at a similar performance level, and both are for certain applications valid choices or valid options. You know, but trying to find stuff on YouTube where people actually compare those two in an application other than let's say gaming, but in like applications and workloads that are relevant to us, you rarely find. You'll find plenty of people that do video editing benchmarks, sure, or Blender renderings or 3D Studio renderings or Unreal renderings, which comes fairly close to some of our needs. But have you seen very many people who are benchmarking how many simultaneous tracks can I play in Resolume?
That's a good point.
How many frames do I lose on my video input, on my capture card? How color accurate is the signal I'm capturing with that capture card compared to the other model capture card? You know? How clean is the signal? Are there any artifacts in the captured signal? Well, how's the audio video sync delay? How's the lag? You know?
I think we get the point, Chris. So.
Okay, yeah, I'm probably digressing. But as I'm kind of saying this, you know, I'm getting all these ideas, what stuff that should be tested, and nobody does. And I would love to do it, but I don't get, like a lot of these reviewers, unfortunately, I don't get sent test samples so I can run benchmark tests, right? By comparison.
Yeah.
And obviously,
yeah, no, exactly.
And I obviously don't have the money to buy different pieces of equipment to compare them to each other.
No, there's a lot of trial by fire, that's for sure. And, you know, there's nothing worse than buying something that you think will fit your needs and only to find out that in the long run, there's one, you know, specific piece of the puzzle that's missing.
Exactly.
That
So
you
and
end
that
up having
brings us,
to, if I just spent the extra $100 or whatever, I could have gotten the model up.
exactly,
Or,
and
know,
that brings us full
yeah.
circle, you know, because somebody did buy that thing, somebody owns it, you know, and somebody knows if they regret buying it or not. You know, somebody knows what's good about it and what isn't good about it. And they could, you know, they could grab their cell phone and just make, like, I don't know, a 3-minute video talking about this device, why they think it's good or why they think it sucks.
Yeah, no, completely agree. You know, so. But with that, Chris, I actually got to get going. So maybe we should wrap stuff up.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't want to keep you any longer than necessary. I probably have to make myself some dinner, too, and then take the dog for a stroll. So I would say, yeah, everybody like, subscribe, click the notification bell so you know when we load the next video. And yeah, please leave comments in the chat or join our Discord channel. You can leave comments there. Let us know what you think, if you have any ideas, or if you want to contribute, if you want to make a video about anything, let us know. We'll figure something out. You got anything to add to that, Steve?
No, I think you've pretty much covered it all, my friend.
Okay, on that note, I would say stay frosty, stay cool, stay kind, stay level-headed, and much love to everybody. Thank you all for joining us. And we'll see you next week, I hope. Right?
You got it.
Okay, here goes the outro music.